Hello everyone and welcome to the session. My name is Kay Woodgate. I'm a movement therapist, which means I use movements such as Pilates, yoga, other various rehabilitative movements I use alongside those very well-known modalities to help people find greater degree of movement in their body, greater flexibility, greater mobility and alleviation of your pain and tightness concerns. This session is going to be dedicated to back discomfort and finding greater ease of movement in our spines. But just a couple of things before we proceed. If you have anything that aggravates your spine during this session, you should stop and consider seeking medical advice, especially if these are unusual symptoms. But even if they're not unusual, but they are triggering something you're trying to avoid, perhaps doing what we're doing here for you is not right at this moment in time. Generally, what I'm planning to do is safe by and large, but of course I've not necessarily worked with you in person, so I don't particularly know your particular aspects of your condition. Secondly, it's very worth knowing exactly what you're dealing with. For example, if you've got something that needs particular care, this might not be suitable for you today. But this class will be suitable for people with non-acute issues and spinal conditions such as a little bit of disc herniation going on, maybe facet joint trouble, scoliosis, these sorts of things. If it's not new, if it's known to you, you are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis and you're just looking for an extra amount of input to strengthen up, this session is for you. If you are at any stage experiencing sharp shooting pains, any kind of pins and needles, numbness that is completely unusual for you, you should stop and seek medical advice. Apart from that, we should be good to go. So this is just a necessary medical disclaimer to make sure that we're nice and safe. So I want you to enjoy the session and I want you to take some positive stuff out of this so that you can take forwards on your health journey. So what you need for this session today is really handy props that I think everybody will be able to find at home. Everybody will need a chair, ideally something with a flat seat that it's not kind of caving in and dipping inwards. That's one. Some pillows or cushions that we will play with and do various arrangements with them. It might be handy to find a stack of books. Now I'm talking about a bunch of books that you can stack up to maybe 30 centimeters high if needs be. So those items, bring them together. And last but not least, a belt of some sort. Some people might have a yoga belt, that's fantastic. Or a belt that you just have a normal waist belt, that will be also quite suitable. So if you get those bits together, we're going to get going. So, hopefully you got those bits together and you might want to pause the video if you haven't yet and I'm still talking. Once you've got those bits together, I'm just going to very briefly chat about what it is that stabilizes the spine. So the spine and the pelvis, when they're stabilized from our deep core muscles, are actually a lot more mobile and they should not be experiencing much in the way of discomfort. Some of our discomfort, if it's coming from our core muscles not being active, is created in the following fashion. A very important input into our stability of our center of mass, and this is all about stabilizing the pelvis and the lower back, is coming from really good breathing mechanics. And good breathing mechanics intimate that when we breathe in, our rib cage expands in three directions, outwards, to the sides, and a little bit up and down. And when you exhale, the rib cage gently comes together. So what this presents us is an opportunity to create that rib cage expansion. If it does not happen, we obviously need to continue breathing in. If the rib cage is really stiff and immobile, the pressure of the breathing in pops the belly up and out, like so. And, you know, by and large, a little bit of this is not a problem, but if we only breathe outwards through the belly and the rib cage does not move, we're effectively constantly pushing the pressure outwards into the tummy when we breathe in. When we exhale, that tummy contracts a little bit, but it's actually not exercising and stretching and contracting all the core muscles that actually attach to the rib cage. So when our rib cage is not going through that movement, our core muscles aren't getting that stretch and contraction experience. And what happens with our core muscles when they are in that way sleepy is that they don't have a chance to properly contract, and when they do, they wrap around our sides and into the tissues of the lower back. There are some really important tissues in the lower back that connect deeply to the spinal vertebrae. And when nothing much is happening from the front, the more superficial muscles in the back of the body will be tensing up. So what some people experience as the experience of your back going or locking up or something like that is typically the spasm in the superficial muscles, because the deep muscles are not interacting with the breathing cycle and they have forgotten how to work deeply to stabilize the spine at the level of the little bones called vertebrae. It's a very simplified mechanism, and there are obviously a few more tweaks to it than that. But a lot of our discomfort in the lower spine happens from the rib cage that does not move, the front of the body that is sleepy and it's not doing the proper contraction and expansion in a good way, and then the back muscles end up taking the brunt. And that's one mechanism. The other mechanism by which we get back discomfort is by people habitually standing with the tailbone really down and kind of a sense of the tailbone between the legs. And some of us have been taught to stand that way, but actually, because if we do that, we create a sense of our core at the front of the body and around our pelvis not being in the optimal position. So we change the relationship between the rib cage and the pelvis by standing constantly with the tail tucked under. And then we add load. For example, we lift something with the knees bent, or even not with the knees bent, leaning over and yank something up, and the tail is dropped between the legs. Our core in that position does not work very well at all. The core does not wrap over and stabilize our spine. We create a risk of things like disc herniations. And disc herniations and any hernias in the abdominal wall are basically part and parcel of the same issue. They are potentially consequences of not breathing extremely well and not having very good alignment. So our approach is to address those inputs, and it's really important to understand that we can't just lie on the back on the floor and exercise our way out of these problems unless we also address our breathing and unless we also address our posture. Now obviously for a short class like we're doing today, it's not possible to tackle all of these things, but I'll give you a taste of things that need to be feeding into this mechanism of you getting stronger, more aligned and breathing better, so that you can take these skills away and start figuring out whether you're using them in day-to-day life and how to start using them in day-to-day life. And then all the other strengthening aspects will come over and above and on top of that. I hope that makes sense. So without further ado, we are going to go and practice some skills, starting with floor exercises, because this is when we start learning about the optimal positioning of the ribcage to pelvis. Before we lie on the floor, it's worth having a quick check of your standing alignment as it is at the moment. So if you have a mirror, and if you have one of your belts that you hopefully grabbed, and I'm going to use a yoga strap, I want you to check. So if you find the widest bony part of your pelvis to the side of your hip, and you're going to feel a bit of a bone there somewhere. It corresponds to the widest part of the pelvis around about here. And if you have a buckle, drop it down towards the floor so it hangs, and pin the belt to that bony part of your pelvis, and have a look in the mirror. Where does the gravity and the drop of the buckle take that buckle? Is it like we tend to stand, falling to around maybe the center of the foot, like so? And if you are finding that that buckle touches your foot close to the toes, then you're standing with the hips shifted forwards. And that's already not an optimal position of your rib cage to pelvis, because effectively your rib cage is lifted and your pelvis is staying behind it. What we need to be working towards is alignment where that belt drops right over your outside ankle bone. And you can see that I shifted my hips from here to there, and can you see how the belt adjusted? That is far better alignment. In fact, that's what we're needing to aspire to, for us to be stacked. The body needs to be stacked for the core to switch on and work. So I want you to monitor these things as you go through your strengthening process. Do you get your hips, are you able to get your hips further back to be over your feet? So that's check number one. Now we're going to play with this in a lying down position. So grab yourselves a chair, and I want you to use that chair with the chair seat facing your mat. So somewhere to lie down on. Hopefully you've all got a mat, an exercise mat. And grab some cushions or pillows. I've got this pretty chunky one here. And I want you to use your belt and keep it handy. Place that belt that you're going to practice with on the floor, so it will be underneath your mid-back when you come to lie down on the ground. And once you've got all of these props arranged, the belt underneath, the cushion close by, it can be ready underneath the back of your head. I want you to lie down on the floor so that your feet will come up to the chair seat. So you're resting your heels on the chair seat. And if anyone is currently experiencing a degree of back discomfort, and you're thinking, oh, should I proceed with this class and should I not? Then actually this is going to be potentially exactly what you need to get yourself out of the current spasm that you might be experiencing. So let me talk you through this. You are lying on your back, and let's find the neutral pelvis. What I mean by that, it's a pelvis, if you imagine your tummy as a bowl of water, that level of water is not dropping into your waist, it's not sloshing into your waist. That will be a flattened back into the ground, and we don't want to have that, because that also changes the positioning between the rib cage and the pelvis. You also don't want to be so arched in your lower back that the water from your tummy water bowl sloshes towards your buttocks. So we want to be right in the middle. So if you tilt your pelvis one way and the other way, and then find the middle ground where your lower back is relaxed and has a slight natural arch, and take your fingertips, gently slide those into the small of your back, and you should be able to feel that your waist and your sides are having a slight lift away from the floor, but your fingertips should not touch underneath your spine. And that is going to be your neutral spine to pelvis relationship. And then I want you to notice the back of your rib cage, how the back of your rib cage can come down to the floor. And for some people, even when they find a neutral pelvis, their rib cage will still want to lift up towards the sky. Now, one way to change this relationship is by doing the following test. So I want you to keep your pelvis nice and relaxed and the water level in your pelvis bowl level, and then do a little curl up exercise. So you can interlace your hands behind the back of your head, take a breath in, exhale and come up into a little curl up. Now, what I want you to notice, and release down, what I want you to notice is as you're coming up into a little curl up, do your back ribs drop heavy into the floor and then lift away from the floor as you lower yourself back down. And you also should not be moving your pelvis and your pubic bone towards your nose and your face. That will change how your core works as well. So if your back ribs are not very heavy to the floor when you're relaxed and heavy to the floor when you're lifting your head up, then you need to do something called bolstering. And this is where the cushions come in. So you need to place a little bit of cushioning underneath the tops of your shoulders and even more cushioning under the back of your head. So it's like you're building a slope. So let me illustrate. If I've got blocks instead of my pillow, and I build a little slope by using one block in lengthways fashion and the other block on top of it across. And I will be able to have two blocks under my head and just the one block under the tops of my shoulder blades. And I lie down in this arrangement. And then if we repeat this little curl up exercise and come up into a curl up, I want you to bolster as high as needed so that when you do a curl up, your back ribs do not drop heavier into the floor compared to how you are in a more relaxed way. And once you've got that, that's your optimal bolstering, because we're dropping the rib cage to look at the pelvis properly, not jamming it down like a sit-up and a serious crunch, but actually we're placing you into a neutral position. And then that creates the optimal conditions for our core to work when we're doing the breathing practice. I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to remove one of those blocks and put a cushion there for greater comfort for myself at the moment. And then we're going to go into some breath practice. So we're going to need to use your belt. People, if anyone is having a back spasm, you can just use this breathing practice whilst you're staying bolstered, potentially, on the floor with your legs up over something. Now your legs aren't straight and relaxed like this. They are in a 90-90 position, which means your knees are over your hips and your knees are bent at 90 degrees. Now take this belt and cross this over your lower ribs and give it a little bit of tightening, but not massively, so that you don't feel that you're choking yourself. And I want you to just start your normal breathing. I want you to examine, as you keep gently keeping that tension over the belt, and you are only doing this for awareness to see how your ribs expand. Do you actually feel your ribs expand and lose that sense of tension into the belt as you breathe in and out? And how do you feel that tension, if you're feeling anything, tensing into the belt? So we're looking to see, ideally, that you're creating a sense of pushing your ribs out into the belt, not on purpose, but as you naturally inhale. And your ribs are widening side to side. This is lateral breathing. Back to front, so into the floor and up towards the ceiling from the lower rib cage. This is your front to back breathing. And then if you place one hand around your collarbones, there should be a sense of gentle expansion of your collarbones up towards your chin. But these three dimensions, the lateral breathing, the front to back, and the up and down into the collarbones, none of those directions are very dominant. They are forming part of an overall ribcage expansion with no clear dominance. But of course, we're definitely going to feel, some of us are going to feel that something else might be happening. For example, the collarbones are seriously dominant and the ribcage does not like to expand in other ways. Or some people will feel nothing in the ribcage all that much, but if you place your hand on your belly, you will feel that all the breathing goes into the belly. And with repeated exercises on the breathing side of things, we are needing to cultivate the sense of the ribcage working to widen and to gently contract. So to challenge that a little bit, I want you to tighten the belt a little bit around your ribcage, to tighten it a little bit more, and then send your breath. See if you can find the muscles that expand and pull your ribcage apart. Hold it a little bit expanded, and then as you start exhaling, can you hold that expansion for a little bit longer, even as you're exhaling and you're allowing your tummy to empty of air first. And then the ribs will start slowly coming back together. So that's one way of getting our ribcage to recognize what to do here. So finding the muscles that expanded at the base of the ribcage, at the bottom of it, holding it there against the tension of the belt, and then softly exhaling, letting your tummy sink first, letting your ribcage contract and soften later. Another way of doing this, and you need to do quite a few cycles of this to start getting a hang of it, is by using your imagination. Imagine your hand is magic, your fingertips are magic, and you're going to tap the sides of your ribcage around the lower ribs with your magic fingertips. Both hands can be magic, so tap both sides, and imagine every time you tap your ribcage, you're placing some magic holes, like in this imaginary colander, in the sides of your ribcage. And then you're going to imagine you can breathe in through those extra holes in the ribcage. You don't need quite as much tension in the belt. But next time you inhale, imagine sending the air into your ribcage through those magic holes. And as you exhale, just let gravity do its work. As you softly exhale, imagine that you've got the weight pressing down your lower tummy first. So as you exhale, your tummy drops first and your ribcage follows and softens. And again, breathe into those magic holes. A nice long exhale. Start imagining that you can draw the lower belly downwards. So let's just chat about that. If you take your fingertips, place them around your lower belly, and there are some bony parts of your pelvis either side of your tummy. I call them the frontal pelvic bones. That's easier to talk about this without anatomical terms. I want you to imagine that when you inhale, your tummy might well expand. As you exhale, can you imagine drawing those two frontal pelvic bones apart? And you can keep your thumbs on them and assist with that movement as if you're stretching them to the left and to the right, away from the midline of your belly. And imagine you're tightening a rope between them as you stretch them apart as you exhale. Inhale, you're going to let those frontal pelvic bones go. The tummy relaxes and inflates. As you exhale, add a little bit of tension through your thumbs and imagine creating a pull left to right. Those frontal pelvic bones move apart. And the tummy sinks down under the weight of an imaginary weight on it. So you can practice all of these things together and then separately, then together. So the magic breathing into your ribs, the breathing into the belt under a bit of tension, the pulling of your frontal pelvic bones apart as if a weight is pulling down the center of the lower tummy. And that will start creating certain images in your head and also start getting the core to start waking up a little bit. Now we're going to add some movement of your limbs. Now if you are again resting from a back spasm, you can just keep doing what we just did. But we're going to move on to the exercises. So stay on the floor and we are going to go take the chair away. Give yourself a little bit more space. And we're going to add a little bit of leg movement into this. So we're going to start by being stretched out on the floor. Again, you're still using your bolstering. And as you stretch down on the floor completely, I want you to feel how your spine feels in relation to the floor. And I would like you to just notice how the left and the right side of your body contact the floor. And then take your hands gently on your frontal pelvic bones and keep one thumb on each. What I'd like you to do is now switch into a more active mode of breathing. Keep visualizing that the lower portion of your tummy will drop down towards the floor with a weight pressing down on it. But you're going to use an exhale also in a certain way. So imagine that you can blow out lots of candles on a cake that's just above your face. So let's just practice this. Take a breath in. Imagine breathing into that belt, widen your ribs. As you exhale, blow the candles out through a little hole in your mouth and blow for as long as possible. And as you do this, see if you can visualize your frontal pelvic bones moving apart and your lower tummy dropping down towards the floor. And again, inhale, widen the ribs, relax the tummy. Exhale, blow the candles out. And see if you can visualize those frontal pelvic bones moving apart. Let's do this a few times. And you can vary your breath as well. Instead of a blow of the candles through a little hole in your mouth, you can hiss the breath out. So let's try that for a change. Take a breath in, widen the ribs, let your back ribs remain heavy to the floor. Exhale and hiss the breath out whilst creating more space between your frontal pelvic bones and deepening your lower tummy. And again, notice if your shoulders are tensing up. Relax the shoulders, relax the face and jaw. Exhale and hiss. And you can do a couple more in your own time. Perhaps you might want to pause the video and do this. We'll just do one last one. Exhale and hiss the breath out. Now, once you've practiced, I want you to notice if there is a difference for you in terms of how your deepening of the tummy feels. For some people, the hissing works really well. For some people, the blowing of candles feels very, very good. Just see if you can use what's appropriate for you today. We're going to combine this with a little bit of work to lift one leg up slightly off the floor. Now I want you to observe what happens with your pelvis. Does it tip and rotate to one side, or does it stay completely put and level? And that's really important at this stage to know. So take a breath in, widen the ribs as you exhale, draw the tummy down to the floor and either hiss or blow the candles out, and lift your right leg a few inches off the floor as you continue your hissing or blowing. Inhale, release that leg back down, and then alternate your legs. Exhale, hiss or blow, and slowly lift your left leg off the floor just a few inches. As you come back down, notice if your pelvis adjusted to be more level. We're going to do one more each way. Hiss or blow, keep your pelvis level monitored with your thumbs, and lift your right leg up and notice what happens, drawing the tummy down. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, change sides and do the left leg once again. Now, let's do a couple more whilst I talk to you and you observe what happens. If you're finding that your pelvis is completely level and your little leg lifts is not creating a sense of twisting in your pelvis, you're doing fantastic, and your breathing is working together with everything else to stabilize you, and then you actually can strengthen your deep tummy muscles with no compensations from the twisting. If you're finding that the pelvis is tipping, then your core muscles are in need a little bit of TLC and rehab and strengthening to keep your pelvis really level. So what we can do is just do smaller leg lifts and deeper breath cycles to start training you to do this better. But a straight leg is actually quite a strong exercise. So we can make it a little bit easier. And now you have a sense of what happens with a straight leg lift. We can make it a little bit easier for your body to adapt to that by doing a bent knee leg raise. So for that, I would like you to keep your stack of books handy, just in case we need to modify. And we are going to go and change you over to be in a position where your legs are bent at the knee and your feet are flat on the floor. So notice that your pelvis is currently pretty much level on the ground, and we're going to keep your knees bent at 90 degrees with this movement. Still have your thumbs on your frontal pelvic bones as if you're cradling your pelvis to check its level. Now we're going to switch to alternating one leg at a time, the bent knee float up to the sky. So keeping your leg bent, right side, take a breath in. Exhale, hiss or blow the candles out and float your right leg up into what we call a knee float until your knee sits just over your hip. And we have blown the air out. Pause there, take another breath in. Exhale, blow the air out again and slowly release that leg down as you are exhaling. Just the one exhale all the way. I had to pause obviously because I was talking. Notice as you lightly land your foot on the floor whether your pelvis came back to center. Let's examine the left side. Take a breath in. Exhale, blow or hiss and float your left leg up on one exhale all the way up until the knee is over the hip. Pause. Take another breath in. Exhale and one exhale. Softly release that foot back down to the floor with the knee remaining bent. And notice if your pelvis adjusted on this side. Now it's possible that one or both sides rotated and tipped, and you will have felt the same in that case with the straight leg lift which we did earlier. So this is when the stack of blocks comes in handy. If you take a stack of blocks and place this underneath the foot that you're going to release off the floor as you come up into a knee float. So let's say as I'm lifting my right foot off the floor into a knee float, my pelvis can't stay still and it tips. So I'm going to start from a higher level. I'm going to adapt so that I've got less far to travel with that leg into a knee float. Take a breath in, hands on your frontal pelvic bones, monitor your pelvis level. As you exhale, hiss or sigh or blow the air out, and from a higher level, lift this leg up into a knee float. Pause there. Take a breath in. Exhale, allow your rib cage to stay slightly wider. Deepen the tummy as you exhale. Deepen, deepen, deepen the tummy. Move the leg nice and slow until it touches that level of your stack of books. And notice if that tipping in your pelvis became basically stable, that you did not tip at all, or if it tipped less, you have bolstered your foot almost perfectly, but you might need to go a little bit more, a little bit less. So if you're still tipping, you need to bolster your foot stack higher. If you're tipping none at all, you may want to play around with removing some of the blocks until you find where you're just about staying level, but you're now challenging your strength and your core muscles to keep you there. And you're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So once you've moved, you can do your right leg several times to find that optimal level. But then you can move on to the left side. And you can do exactly the same if the left leg knee float created a sense of twisting in your body. So this is your variation for this. Now, if somebody is perfectly stable, which is fantastic, and you're not changing how your back feels in relation to the floor, and you're not flattening the back into the ground or arching the back, you can actually make this exercise harder, which is probably what you're looking for. So you don't need blocks if you're not tipping the pelvis. Instead, you're going to float the arms up to the sky. Imagine you're holding a nice beach ball just above your chest. And from here, you're going to float your right leg up as you exhale. Float that right leg down as you exhale. And then changing sides, you're going to move on to the left side. Now, if you're not tipping the pelvis anywhere, which is fantastic, you then need to monitor whether or not you are flattening your back as you move, arching your back as you move, or lifting your shoulders up in any way, maybe even tensing the jaw. So we're looking for those subtle clues as you're exhaling and moving your legs up and down. For any other subtle clues in your body that something is helping your core switch on, which we can really do without, as in that helpful extra bit of tension in your neck or shoulders or jaw, we don't really need to have those. So observe if one side is feeling the compensation, and then see if you can work with your breath, the deepening of that hissing, the deepening of the lower belly towards the floor, the keeping of your rib cage wider and not squeezing the air out with your lower ribs as you exhale. And that's going to be your next level of progression. If you're feeling stable even in this, which is also fantastic, you can move on to leg floats, one, and then add the second leg float. And from here there's a number of variations. You can release that one foot down, one at a time, and repeat the same. And the last variation I'll give you is one leg comes up as you exhale, second leg comes up as you exhale, and from here you're going to do leg reaches. Reach the leg and bring it back in. And exhale, reach the leg and bring it back in. So you can do a couple of those or several more if you're feeling really stable and controlled. And are you feeling this through your core? That's basically what we're aspiring to. Are you feeling that your lower tummy is working and your ribs are getting that expansion with your inhales? To come out of this position, float the arms down, release your legs one at a time and rest. Now, what I like to always do with people with my core classes is go through a generic overall core activation exercise, and that you will need your chair for this for a second again. So if you bring your chair back in and place this again so you're bolstered, keep your bolsters, place your heels on the chair seat and bring your heels down as if you're pinning the chair seat down with your heels. Lift the toes up to the sky. Check that your knees are right over the hips and your knees are bent at 90 degrees. Float your arms up towards your thighs and keep your palms up to the sky as if you're holding 2 dishes of water. Widen your knees slightly. Keep your heels in line with your sit bones. Relax your collarbones. Release the face and the jaw tension. Look straight up at the sky. Keep your teeth apart but lips together. If you're not congested, you should switch to nasal breathing for this movement. So I want you to look up, straight up the sky. Keep your eyes open, focusing. Take a breath in. As you exhale, blow the air out, nice and long, very long exhale. And as you do this, just half an inch, hover your right heel off the floor without losing the sense of your ribcage being relaxed and looking down at your pelvis. Inhale, float the heel back down. Exhale, change sides and float the left heel just off the chair seat. As you exhale, nice and long, nice and long, nice and long. Relax the collarbones. Inhale, release the heels back down. Keep pressing your thighs outwards into your pinkies and your pinkies back into your thighs so you feel connected through the sides of your body. Again, exhale, little hover of your right heel off the chair seat. Make sure you're not tensing the rib cage and arching your back. Inhale, release the heel down. Inhale, exhale, long blow, left heel hovering. Relax the collarbones, keep pressing the thighs into your pinkies. Palms are looking up at the sky. One more each way. Release the left heel. Switch to the right heel floating up. Deepen, deepen, deepen the belly. Keep your nasal exhale going as long as you can. Inhale, release the right heel. Last one, exhale, lift and hover the left heel just a touch. Keep your jaw relaxed, your lips are together, teeth are apart, arms are active, just almost straight at the elbow. Inhale, release your arms, place the left heel back down the chair seat and take your heels off the chair and come off there and remove your chair. This movement activates the whole core. Now we've had a sense of whether we are tipping and rotating a little bit. This should help us rebalance things back together again. And we can just remove the chair out of the way. And I like to follow this with a diaphragm release. So if we lie on the floor, I'm just going to teach you a little diaphragm release. We're just going to feel underneath the rib cage, feel for any tension. And if you're not able to sink your fingers under the edge of the rib cage, then we've got tension under there. So we want to see if the right or the left side are tense. And when I say curling the fingers under, that means to the first knuckle. So if you're very superficial and it feels like you've got tension in the upper belly, that probably means you've got tension in the upper abdominals, which is inhibiting the work of the lower abdominals. You want to prioritize the spot, left or right, whichever feels more tense and maybe ticklish or unpleasant to touch. And turn your head the other way. So if I'm prioritizing my left, I turn my head to the right. We're going to take a breath in, and as you exhale, sink 2 fingers, index and middle, into that tensest spot under the rib cage edge as you exhale. Take another breath in, keep that gain, keep those fingers sinking. Exhale again. And at the bottom of your exhale, cough a little bit. Keep that gain in your fingers. Take another breath in. As you exhale, you're going to add a cough and a flick, a quick flick of your fingers towards the same side shoulder as if you're pulling a can open. So it's a cough and flick. And then we're going to repeat this. So that's a 3-breath exhale for the diaphragm release. Take a breath in. Exhale, sink your 2 fingers under the tensor spot under your rib cage. Don't do anything else. Another breath in. Exhale, sink, and cough at the bottom of your exhale. Good. Last one. We'll combine this with a cough and flick. So exhale all the way out the bottom of your exhale. We're going to cough and quickly flick the fingers out to the same side shoulder. Like so. And some people might need to do more than the 2 cycles we've done. After you've softened your diaphragm, we're going to move into the next movement. So for some people it's really important to check that they're not doing any hip hitching as they move through these movements. So place your thumb and your index finger as if you've got a spacer in your waist to keep awareness of where your rib cage ends and where your pelvis begins. So you're measuring the equal sides of your waist. We're going to keep your pelvis water bowl nice and level. Take a breath in. As you exhale, start dragging your right heel down on the floor away from you until that leg is stretched on the floor. And then inhale, bring that leg back down into a knee bend position. And changing sides. Stretch your left leg, heel away, and then stretch it back into a bend position. So you're going to alternate, and I want you to check, is your pelvis water bowl remaining level? So you're not tipping, you're not sloshing the water left or right. And is your waist being kept the same length either side of your body? If you're hip hitching, you need to practice the awareness so that you don't shorten the waist as you slowly stretch your legs out one by one. For some people this can be a game changer because they realize they're actually using the waistline all the time. So that's another wonderful exercise to practice whilst being on your back. So we're going to find your belt again, and this time we're going to lose any bolstering that you have and practice a different movement altogether, which gives us awareness of what happens with your rib cage. So if you take your belt, and if it's very long like mine, you're going to fold it over several times so it's not so crazy long. And then you're going to lie on the back. You can have a little pillow under the back of your head, especially if you found that you need to bolster quite a lot. So for example, I can use a block here and lie down to the floor and have your knees bent. Take your belt above your chest and pull on it as if you want to snap it in two, and turn your arms as if you want to see a little bit more of your inside elbow pits. What we're going to do now is we're going to slowly start taking your belt up and overhead, keeping your neck relaxed only to the point that you don't lift your shoulders up. And notice what happens when you come to a point when your shoulders are still just about relaxed, your face is soft. Does your rib cage want to lift and arch away from the floor? I want you to keep your rib cage down and relaxed, and then take your arms back over your chest. And this is the movement. As you exhale, take those arms up and overhead, pull on the belt, allow your shoulder blades to slide down. Inhale, come back with the belt over your chest. So this movement you can do as much as you can of, but keep your shoulders relaxed. So if you're finding that the taking of the arms overhead creates a sense of lifting the shoulders up, you know that there's a clue in the shoulders trying to help your core. What's actually happening is that you're loading the front of your body. And as you take your arms overhead, your tummy muscles respond to keep your rib cage in exactly the same position as before. But if we're needing a little bit more TLC in the belly muscles, and that rib cage might want to lift. And you need to be aware of this. The progression from here, for people who are feeling that this is okay, is instead of the belt, and not everybody will have that, but use the weights, hold them in 2 hands, and take them overhead. And you can start using water bottles, for example, if you've got those. That's the progression from this. So you can try that if you're feeling that your rib cage is stable with just pulling on the belt, and see how much you can challenge the front of your body by taking some weights overhead, but don't let your shoulders lift up. The next movement we're going to do is we're going to go and do some bridge movements. So for this I would recommend you lose the ball string, because we don't want to crick the neck in any way. And have your feet on the floor and arms are down by your sides. Palms are pressing into the floor. Let's have the toes turning outwards a little bit, but the heels are remaining in line with your sit bones. I want you to become aware of the pressure of your big toe bases and little toe bases into the floor, and find the centers of your heels. It's really important that each foot has got that awareness of those 3 points of contact. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, you're going to press the floor away like you're pressing your feet into lovely soft sand. And as you press and press and press, your buttocks will lift off the floor, and then you're going to start releasing the pressure into your feet and lower your buttocks back down. So this is our movement. Take a breath in. Exhale, press the floor away, lift up, reach into the knees, and then release down slowly. So we can do this a couple of times. For the purposes of this class, that's a practice movement. You can pause the video and do more of the same, with you driving the floor away through the feet as you're keeping your collarbones lovely and relaxed, and your face soft, your jaw is free of any tension. Your arms are down by your sides, and your shoulder blades are contacting the floor solidly, so that your chest is in no way rolled in. It's nice and open. And you can add a little bit of extra work by pressing the backs of the arms into the floor and reaching into the fingertips, and then slowly releasing back down. So there's a couple of ways in which we can make this exercise more fun. If you're feeling that this is okay for you, you can press your feet into the floor and then start thinking about transitioning more weight into just the left side, into the left foot, level the weight, and then transition more weight into the right foot. And what's really important here is to not let the pelvis sink on one side. You're keeping your water bowl in the pelvis level with your rib cage, so that you're still finding that you are level in if you had the spirit level across your belly, that would be level. Keep alternating, more pressure into one foot, back to center, and last time switching the weight into one foot more, and then leveling the weight, slowly release back down to the floor and resting. The further progression, as you can imagine from this, is actually to start floating one foot off the floor. But I don't want to go there today, because we don't know exactly how your body will respond to this today. This is a very generic back discomfort class. We just want to take things nice and slow. Another thing, and people with active disc herniations might want to be a little bit careful of this, but getting the pelvis to turn and rotate is super important. So another thing we can do with care, especially if you are a little bit more new to that back discomfort, is coming up into a bridge, and then imagine that your body is staying in a nice long tube, very tight space. So you're not going to go into the sides of that tube, and you can use your hands to gently hold your pelvis for awareness. And then imagine you're going to drop the right side of your pelvis, your right buttock, down to the floor with no rotation, with no pressing of your hips into the left side of the tube. Pick up that right hip and now drop the left hip in exactly the same way. Your pelvis will look to the left, but don't allow the right hip to pop outwards. Pick up that left hip and drop the right hip again. Pick it up and drop the left. What I'd like you to do is keep alternating. Keep your knees looking straight ahead and keep that pressure into your feet, but don't allow your upper back to arch. So imagine that your bridge, you're staying in that bridge, which starts at your mid-back area. For the ladies, that's easier, that's the bra strap line. For the gentlemen, it's the other side of the nipple line for you. And notice if your pelvis prefers to rotate one way with greater ease and the other way is kind of a bit more sticky. So we probably want to see if we can mobilize that a little bit more. So imagine, so the side that is more stiff to drop to. So for example, if your right hip does not want to drop down to the floor whilst your left hip is staying up. So your rotation to the right is a little bit more creaky. Come back to center, release your hips down. The side that didn't want to drop to the floor, bring that knee in towards your chest with both hands. Hug it in underneath the knee, not over the knee. Keep your back in neutral. And now, even as you're hugging the leg in towards your chest, press that leg away from your shoulder whilst drawing the leg in. So actually you're not moving anywhere. Press, 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 press. Soften that press. Again, press that leg away. Keep it holding, keep it holding, keep it holding, keep it holding. Don't actually move the leg, you're just resisting. Soften. And once more, press the leg away against your resisting hands. Hold. Breathe. Soften. Keep hold of that leg. Now we're going to add a little bit of a tummy crunch, but only with one leg pressed in. So prepare to work the belly to drop it down towards the floor. Take a breath in, widen the ribs. As you exhale, draw the tummy down towards the floor. Come up with your head and shoulders off the floor like you're doing a little curl up. Float the elbows, look towards your knees, bring the knee closer to your chest. Inhale, release down. And again, exhale, come up into a little curl up. Elbows are hovering, neck is long, chin is tucked in. Inhale, come back down. And again, come up into a little curl up and float the elbows, lengthen the back of your neck. Inhale, come back down and release. We're going to repeat this movement with the pelvis drop and rotation. So bring your feet back into parallel. Press your feet into the floor, lift your hips up into that bridge again. Use your hands to monitor where your pelvis is. We're going to allow your body to drop one hip down, rotate one way, come back to center and then go the other way. And see what that relative movement feels like. Has it become any easier on the side that didn't want to drop before, and then we mobilized it with the leg press? And then come back all the way back in and release your hips back down. We're going to roll off your backs and we're going to do some movements whilst lying on your front to finish. And this is something I really like to do. It's called crocodile breathing and it's a very deep core exercise. for our spines. Now, a couple of modifications to consider. So first of all, not everybody will be comfortable lying flat on their tummies. So if those people are already aware that this is going to be a limitation, I've got an alternative for you. You're going to use a chair. You're going to kneel in front of the chair, like so, with your knees under the hips and your forearms forming a cushion that you can rest your forehead on. And quite often, that in itself is also a very good movement for achy backs, but you need to find your neutral position of your pelvis. So quite often we are tucked under, dropping the tail down between the legs. I want you to be more relaxed, but don't allow your back to deeply arch and sag. So you're actually in an active position. Imagine you're reaching your sit bones to the wall behind you. Then you're going to have a sense of drawing your lower ribs into your body away from the floor, and then lengthen the back of your neck. And in this position, which is a modified on a belly position, we're going to breathe into the back of the body. So imagine you're going to expand your back ribs like a ladybird expands its wings. As you exhale, can you give me a nasal exhale? Keep your eyes open, keep your lips together, teeth apart, keep your ribs drawn in into the front of your body. Exhale for as long as you can. Now I want you to start being more active with your forearms. Press your forearms into the chair seat, but keep your forehead on your folded hands. And in that case, draw the back of your neck away from the floor, so you're lengthening that space in the neck. And now breathe again. Inhale into the back. Exhale, nice long nasal exhale. Keep active and don't let your spine move, sag, go anywhere. So this is the adaptation for people in a kneeling position. And some of us will be comfortable being on the front completely. So come down to the floor and I want you to tuck your toes under. Tuck your toes under and place your forearms on the floor so that your forearms are pressing the floor away, so pressing into the floor, but you're lifting your collarbones away from the floor, but you're keeping your forehead down. And I want you to keep your eyes open, look straight into the floor, teeth are apart, lips are together, nasal breathing. Tuck the toes under and reach your heels up to the sky. Gather your ribs away from the floor. So actually you're super active. It should feel like work here. And then breathe into the back of your body. Inhaling into the back ribs. Exhaling, nasal long exhale. And we can do a few breath cycles like this. Let's go for 4. I want you to keep monitoring your neck has not dropped and sagged to the floor, that you're keeping a long line between the crown of your head, the base of your neck, and reaching that awareness all the way down into the tailbone, and your frontal pelvic bones and the pubic bones are down on the pelvis. They're contacting the floor. Once you've finished your 4 breaths like this, come up into an elbow prop. So lift your head away from the floor now. Separate your hands. Connect your thumbs and your index fingers. Flatten your palms into the floor. Connect your pinky fingers into the floor. Press the floor away. Lift the collarbones away from the ground. Lift the diaphragm away from the ground. So you're going to draw the ribs in. Keep your elbows down. And we're going to stay here. Draw the chin back into the back of your body, like the chin is sliding back into your head on a shelf. And breathe into the back again. Unclench your buttocks. They might well be clenching, but we want to work the spine in this. This is supportive of the deep muscles in the spine. And from here on, if you're feeling that you're not collapsing in your body down to the floor, which is the objective, on the next exhale, you're going to crease at the wrist and just lift one hand off the floor, like you're lifting the fingers only. Inhale, release that hand. Change sides. Exhale, lift the other hand off the floor. Inhale, release it down. So we can do this hand lift, and the most important thing to notice is your spine going to support you in a way that the pelvis does not rock in any way. This is amazing for people with disc herniations and that sort of position in the spine when you tend to be tucked under. This takes you out of the tucked under position. If you've got a facet joint jam, this might not be quite so good for you at the moment, but the breathing will be. You need to keep your pubic bone down if you've got a facet joint jam going on. That might be a useful adaptation for you. If it doesn't work, don't do this. The next progression from this is if your hand lift does not result in your pelvis wobbling on the floor, then you keep your elbows down but lift the rest of your forearm up. So you're just supporting yourself on one forearm and an elbow. Lower your forearm down and then change sides. Other forearm lifting and then lowering down. Your success criteria is basically staying lifted with your collarbones, head, neck, shoulders. Nothing is moving as you're reducing the support that you're giving your body through the forearms. And this is amazingly strengthening for the deep back muscles. And then we're going to untuck your toes, release down, rest. And then when you're ready, we're going to come off the floor to be standing. We're going to finish this short class here. There's a few bits of theory that we went through, a few exercises and a bunch of modifications for those. Of course, we can take this into a much deeper practice. So if you would like to find out more, please get in touch and we can chat about what we can do for your body in terms of getting you the correct progression, where you might feel stuck, where you might feel the benefit of a consultation, where you might benefit from joining some classes. I wish you the very best of luck on your healing journey for your spinal discomfort. And just be aware there's always, always, always ability for us to find you movements that are beneficial for you, that are strengthening, that alleviate your pain. Please always combine your routines of workout with sufficient relaxation and reducing the stress in your body. So, useful to know that we need to stay in balance with our health, body and mind. Have a wonderful rest of your day and thank you for joining me today. Bye for now.